Well, hello everybody. I'm Bruce, the Gig Farmer. Today we're going to go into the key of C. Typical chords found in the key of C are C, F, G, and you have a few minor chords as well. A minor, D minor, and E minor. Today I'm going to give you some tips on how to get from one chord to the other a little bit faster than you may be doing. This is mainly for people starting out, or if you're having trouble maybe with that F chord, some helpful tips to get you going on your way to that intermediate level. So let's get started. Yeah. We'll begin with this C chord. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we get a better look at it here. Now I am making what most people would call a regular C or starter C because you use 3 fingers, okay? The index finger is going to go on the 2nd string 1st fret, middle finger on the 4th string 2nd fret, and ring finger on the 5th string 3rd fret. Be careful that you don't flatten this finger. That often happens. When you flatten it, it deadens or mutes 2 or 3 strings below it, so you won't get a clean chord. Our F chord we're going to use today is similar to the C chord, and this is perhaps our first helpful hint, is that you can take these 2 fingers and move them together down a set of strings to get to the F chord, or the start of the F chord. Then you have to take this finger and you have to bar, that would be the index finger or pointer, you have to bar across these 2 strings here, so you get all 4 strings, 4 through 1, to ring. Now this is probably the toughest chord when you're first starting out, because to get that little bar there is very difficult. You have to learn how to push your finger, get just the right pressure on those strings to where you can get both of those notes to ring while playing this. Most people have trouble with that 1st string starting out. And if you do, just keep working on it. It's okay. If it gets a little muted, you still have an F chord. You're only playing 3 strings of it. Now be careful, because if you open it up and play the E string open, you have an F major 7, which is a beautiful chord, but it's not an F major chord, and we don't want that. At least not today. The other chord, which we talked about in the previous video because it also occurs a lot in the key of D, is G. And I make my G with the pinky, the ring finger, and the middle finger, rather than the stronger fingers. That's the way I started out playing a G for the first year or 2, but then I switched to this. I'm going to tell you why right now. Talk about switching from C to G. You might see that those 2 fingers are at work again, just like they were going to the F chord, but now they're going up to the 5th and 6th string to help you get into position to play the G chord. Physically, you just have to go back and forth many times until the muscle memory is there. And initially, you'll probably start with this finger, this finger, this finger when you're forming the chord, but eventually all 3 fingers will just, boom, just go to it like that. But again, it takes a lot of practice to get this, but you will get it. Now, I already talked about the position of these 2 fingers here being so important to get to the G chord. Well, they're also important getting to the F chord. You just drop them down a set of strings. And what's going on with this index finger here? On a C chord, it's only hitting the 2nd string 1st fret. On the F chord, it has to pivot or rotate down and get 2 strings. Okay? Now, how does that look hand-wise? When I'm playing a C chord, you can You can kind of barely see my thumb behind there. If you wrap your thumb around, that's fine. Whatever's comfortable for you to make sure that all those strings ring. Now look what happens when I make the F chord. The thumb gets way up here. And that just helps me get in a position where I have a mechanical advantage and I'm able to get those two strings down there. So there's C, F, and G. What about C to A minor? Another popular chord in the key of C is A minor. A minor and C are the relative major and minor. They share a couple of notes. Therefore, you might think that, well, it should be easy to get from one to the other, and you're right. What you need to do is just move this finger, your ring finger, from the 5th string 3rd fret to the 3rd string 2nd fret. So it's going from stretching way out here to tucking underneath your middle finger to get your A minor chord. So these two fingers, the 1st and 2nd fingers, or index and middle, stay in the same place for both chords. Now you'll see my middle finger move a little bit as I'm going from the C to the A minor, right? It's just making room for this finger here, the ring finger, to come in to the 3rd string and get underneath the middle finger, because they're both there. And if this looks familiar, it might be because we talked a little bit about these two fingers working together when you're going from A to E minor. That was in the Changing Chords in the Key of D video. So there you have it, E minor, A, and then A minor, C. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that this is your classic, turn it this way, maybe you can see it better. This is your classic, there you go, C chord, but you can also make it this way. Now these two fingers didn't change. Middle and index stay there. What changed was the bass note. I moved my ring finger from the 5th string to the 6th string, tucked my pinky underneath. And you might say, well, that's too much work, getting 4 fingers on there. It actually isn't. If you give it a little bit of practice time, you'll be able to get it. What this enables us to do is now strum all 6 strings. I'll do it up here so you can see. And you get a G note in the bass rather than the E note, which sometimes sounds a little odd in the bass of a C chord. Even though there is an E note, 2 E notes actually in this C. There's one here on the 4th string, and the 1st string open is also an E note. But it sounds a little odd in the bass. So if you do this 4-fingered C chord, you can strum all the way through. I'll give you another demo of this. Versus, and it comes in handy later in some other videos. I've talked about bluegrass or country strumming where you're hitting 2 bass notes singly, like a bass note then a strum. And it helps you don't have to move fingers around. You could do it with this C chord by moving the ring finger back and forth between the 5th and 6th strings. But if you just make that string, if you make that chord with 4 fingers in the first place, you don't have to worry about that. Now, with this form in mind, you can shift it down a set of strings. And again, you have to roll the index finger, try to get a picture of that, going from there to there in order to get the 2 top strings, 1st and 2nd string, to sound off well. And here you have an F chord. It's a 5-stringed, 4-fingered F chord. And again, you might say, well, it's a lot of work. Well, if you've done the work, if you put in the work to get the F chord this way, you've already trained this finger how to get 2 strings, okay? And it's not too much of a stretch to just add that extra finger by moving the ring finger up to the 5th string and placing the pinky underneath it, just like you did in the C chord. And if I go back and forth between C and F, there's C, there's F, it hardly looks like the fingers are changing place, does it? Because they're just all shifting down at the same time. So there's C to F. Now, G, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of ways to make a G chord. You can make it with these 3 fingers, these 3 fingers. You can actually make a 2-finger G, and you can mute the 5th string by letting the underside of your ring finger touch it. Now when I'm strumming, you can't really tell the difference that that's muted probably, right? Because all the strings are just coming at you. But if I arpeggiate it and play the strings one at a time, you'll see that there's a little bit of a thunk there on the 5th string. Get up here so you can see it. Right? So it's not good if you're doing that country bass and maybe you want to go use it as a bass note. Then you're going to have to make the regular G chord. You're going to have to curl your fingers, get this finger underneath, and make a textbook G. But if you're just strumming along and you need to save some time, then that's a good way to approach your G chord, by just muting the 5th string. And you can do it with these 2 fingers as well. So that should cover us for today, I think. I talked about the C to the A minor. We talked about C to F. Talked about C to G, and how important it is, remember, to think about the relationship between your middle and your ring finger as you're going among these chords. C, F, G, C, A minor. Okay, there it moves. The ring finger moves, but the middle finger and the index finger stay in place, so they can kind of anchor the chord. Well, thanks for hanging with me on this lesson today, changing chords in the key of C. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up, and if you have some comments on some other videos you'd like to see, maybe some other chord changes, I can put that in the queue. So until next time, this is Bruce, the Gig Farmer, signing off. Be safe, and we'll see you next time.